Single for this weekend. My girlfriend posted with a story of her making out with a stranger, while her entitled friends cheered her on. I didn't get mad. I just pulled out my phone and did something that made her regret it forever. Guys, I need to get this off my chest because what happened 6 weeks ago still feels completely surreal. Everyone's telling me I went too far, but after you hear the whole story, I think you'll agree that some people only learn when they face real consequences. This is long, but stick with me because the ending is absolutely worth it. I promise this gets better with each chapter. Before I jump into the main story, let me give you some background so you understand exactly what kind of situation I was dealing with here. I, 28 male, live in Phoenix. Been grinding for 5 years since getting my construction management degree, working my way up from assistant superintendent to running multi-million-dollar projects. The work is demanding. Early mornings, long days dealing with subcontractors, architects, and city inspectors. But the pay is solid at around $125,000 plus performance bonuses that can add another $15,000 to $20,000 annually. I've been smart with money since my dad taught me early that financial independence is everything. He worked construction his whole life, saved every penny, and retired at 58 with enough money to travel and actually enjoy life. That example stuck with me hard. I own a nice 3-bedroom house in a decent neighborhood about 20 minutes from downtown Phoenix. Bought it 2 years ago when interest rates were still reasonable. Put down 20% to avoid PMI, and I've been aggressively paying extra on the principal every month. My truck is a 2019 Ford F-150 that's completely paid off. Reliable, practical, and perfect for work sites. I've been disciplined about saving and investing, putting away at least 30% of my income every month. My plan was always to build wealth slowly and steadily through consistent smart choices. No get-rich-quick schemes or risky investments. Just boring, reliable financial planning that would set me up for early retirement like my dad. My girlfriend Melissa and I have been together almost 4 years. Met her at a friend's barbecue back in summer 2020 when she was working as a social media coordinator at some tech startup that went under after 8 months when their funding dried up. She's 26, definitely attractive, and when we first started dating, she seemed pretty grounded and normal. She had her own apartment, her own car, seemed to have her life together reasonably well. But looking back now, red flags were everywhere, and I was just too focused on building our relationship to see them clearly. Like how she always had some excuse when it came time to split restaurant bills. Or how she'd suggest expensive date activities but somehow never offered to pay her share. Or how she'd make comments about my house and truck, like she was already planning to move in before we'd even discussed it. She moved into my house about 18 months ago after her apartment lease ended, and she claimed she couldn't find anything affordable in a decent area. Initially, she was contributing $900 monthly, which seemed fair since my total mortgage payment is $2,800. We split utilities, groceries, and other household expenses pretty evenly at first, and honestly, things felt good. It was nice having someone to come home to, someone to share meals with, someone who seemed genuinely interested in building something together. But gradually, and I mean really gradually, so I didn't notice it happening, she started having financial emergencies. First, it was unexpected car repairs when her transmission started acting up. Then it was credit card debt from her previous job ending and her struggling to find new work. Then she needed to help her mom with medical bills after some health scare. Every single month brought a new crisis that somehow required me to cover more and more of our shared expenses. For the past year, I've basically been paying for everything. Mortgage, utilities, groceries, even her car insurance and phone bill. She went from contributing $900 monthly to maybe $150 if I was lucky, always with elaborate explanations about how she was between opportunities and just needed a little more time to get back on her feet financially. But here's what really started bothering me, and what I should have paid attention to much earlier. Despite claiming financial hardship constantly, Melissa was spending money like she had unlimited access to it. New clothes from expensive stores every week, professional skincare routines that cost hundreds monthly, those ridiculous lash extensions that run $180 every 4 weeks, weekly nail appointments at some fancy salon, professional hairstyling twice monthly at $200 per session. When I'd bring up the inconsistency between claiming to be broke and spending hundreds on beauty treatments, she'd get all emotional and defensive. She'd talk about how maintaining her appearance was absolutely essential for networking and finding better career opportunities. She'd cry and say, I didn't understand how hard it was for women in professional environments, how appearance mattered more for women than men, how she was investing in herself for our future together. Looking back, I was a complete idiot for believing any of this nonsense. But when someone you care about gets emotional and makes you feel like you're being unreasonable, it's easy to doubt your own instincts. My best friend Jake has been telling me for months that I was being played hard. Jake and I have been tight since college. We were roommates junior and senior year, stayed close after graduation. He's a contract lawyer now specializing in business agreements and prenups, makes good money, and he's got this almost supernatural ability to see through people's manipulation tactics that honestly impressed me even when it was annoying. He'd come over to watch games or just hang out, and he'd watch Melissa spend 30 minutes taking selfies for Instagram, trying different angles and lighting, posting and deleting and reposting the same basic photo. Then he'd make these subtle comments about how she was really committed to building her personal brand or working hard on her social media presence. I thought he was just being pessimistic about relationships in general, since he'd been single for a while and had some bad experiences with women who turned out to be using him. 3 weeks ago, Melissa's friends Brittany, Chloe, and Madison planned this girl's trip to Miami. These aren't her normal friend group. Those are mostly people from college or previous jobs who have actual careers and responsibilities. These Miami friends are the type of women who post bikini photos with captions like, "Living my best life," and "CEO of my own company," when their actual job is part-time retail or some vague consulting work that never seems to involve actual clients. Their entire social media presence revolves around expensive restaurants, luxury experiences, designer clothes, and exotic travel destinations that they clearly can't afford based on their actual employment situations. All single, all in their mid-20s, all constantly discussing strategies for meeting the right kind of men and leveling up their lifestyles. They'd come over sometimes, and I'd hear them talking about apps for meeting wealthy older men, techniques for getting men to pay for expensive dinners and shopping trips, basically treating dating like a business opportunity. Melissa asked permission to go on this trip, which I obviously granted because I'm not controlling, and everyone deserves time with friends. Then she mentioned needing help with the flight since she was still rebuilding financially after her latest job search hadn't worked out. The round-trip tickets were $920, but I figured everyone deserves vacation time, and it wasn't completely unreasonable, so I put it on my credit card without making a big deal about it. Then she needed money for her share of the hotel suite, $1,350 for 3 nights at some luxury resort in South Beach that had infinity pools and bottle service and all the Instagram-worthy amenities her friends had specifically chosen. Then, she needed spending money for activities and meals, $600 minimum, because Miami was expensive and she didn't want to be the one person in the group who couldn't participate in anything fun. Then she needed new outfits specifically for this trip, because apparently nothing in her already extensive wardrobe was appropriate for Miami nightlife. That shopping trip cost $480 and included 2 dresses, new shoes, a bikini, and various accessories that were absolutely essential for the aesthetic they were going for. By the time she left Thursday morning, I had spent nearly $3,400 on this vacation. But I convinced myself this was an investment in her happiness and our relationship. I thought supporting her friendships and social life was part of being a good partner. I thought this trip might help her feel more confident and motivated to get serious about her career when she returned. I drove her to Sky Harbor Airport, helped her with her luggage, kissed her goodbye, and told her to have an amazing time with the girls. She seemed genuinely excited, posting Instagram stories about the airport, her boarding pass, the view from the plane window. Everything appeared completely normal and positive. She texted me when she landed, sent a photo of their hotel suite, seemed happy and grateful for the opportunity. That evening changed absolutely everything. Friday evening, I'm at home in my office reviewing blueprints for a new office complex project when Jake calls me around 8:30. His voice sounds unusually serious, not his typical casual tone. "Dude, you need to check Melissa's Instagram stories immediately. Like, drop whatever you're doing right now and look." I could hear something in his voice that made my stomach start twisting before I even opened the app. I pulled up Instagram on my phone and navigated to her profile. The first story that appeared made my stomach drop through the floor like I was on a broken elevator. Her story showed her and the 3 friends at an upscale rooftop bar overlooking Miami Beach. The lighting was perfect golden hour. They all looked amazing in their new outfits. Elaborate tropical cocktails in hand, with those fancy garnishes that probably cost extra. They were clearly at some expensive place that catered to wealthy tourists and locals looking to impress. But it was the caption that made my blood run cold. "Single girls weekend. No boys allowed." Wait, single? Jake was still on the phone waiting for my reaction. "Keep scrolling, man. There's definitely more." The next story showed Melissa on what appeared to be a packed dance floor at some exclusive club. The lighting was dim and sexy, the kind of place that charges $100 just to get inside. She was dancing very inappropriately with some muscular guy who looked like he spent serious money on personal trainers and protein supplements. His hands were positioned in places that made my blood pressure spike instantly, and both of them looked completely lost in the moment, grinding against each other like they were seconds away from finding a more private location. The caption read, "When in Miami, anything goes." Then came a video that made me feel physically sick to my stomach. Melissa kissing this same guy passionately, while her friends filmed and cheered in the background like they were watching some kind of victory celebration. You could hear Britney's voice clearly screaming, "Yes, girl, get yours," while Chloe was laughing and making encouraging comments. The video was at least 15 seconds long, way too long to be any kind of innocent moment or friendly kiss. But the story that made me see absolute red was the final one. Melissa sitting on another man's lap, or maybe the same guy from a different angle, I couldn't tell, at what looked like a VIP section with velvet ropes and bottle service. Expensive champagne bottles covered the table, the kind that cost $400 minimum in Miami clubs. Her hand was resting on his chest while he whispered something in her ear, and she had this expression of complete satisfaction and excitement. The caption that completely destroyed me. New sponsor alert. Upgrade time. New sponsor. Like she was actively advertising herself as available for financial support while I funded the entire audition process. I sat staring at my phone screen while Jake waited patiently for my response. This woman I'd been supporting financially for over a year, who slept in my bed every single night telling me she loved me, who I'd been seriously considering proposing to within the next 6 months, had just publicly announced to everyone we knew that she was single and actively seeking someone else to financially support her lifestyle. "Don't do anything impulsive," Jake advised when I finally managed to speak. "Let's think strategically about this situation." Here's the thing about Jake that makes him such a valuable friend. He specializes in contract law and business agreements, handles prenups and complex financial arrangements, and he's got this incredibly calculated approach to problem solving that's honestly brilliant. While I was sitting there feeling like I wanted to destroy everything in reach, he was already planning 3 moves ahead. "She wants to play these games with your money," Jake said calmly. "Let's see how she handles facing real consequences for her choices." That's when I realized Melissa wasn't just cheating on me emotionally and physically. She was using my money to fund her active search for my replacement. She had literally turned our relationship into a business transaction where I was the unwitting investor in her plan to trade up to someone wealthier. The level of disrespect and manipulation was staggering when I really thought about it. She had planned this whole trip as an opportunity to market herself to potential new sponsors, while I covered all the expenses. She had deliberately presented herself as single to maximize her options. She had turned my generosity into the foundation for her betrayal. Saturday morning, while Melissa was probably sleeping off her evening adventures in someone else's hotel room, I was sitting at my kitchen table with Jake, systematically dismantling the entire financial infrastructure I'd built to support her lifestyle over the past 18 months. Jake had arrived early with coffee and a legal pad where he'd written out what he called our action plan. He was treating this like a business problem that required methodical solutions. And honestly, his calm approach was exactly what I needed to keep from making emotional decisions I'd regret later. First move, I canceled her return flight. My credit card, my frequent flyer points, my booking confirmation number, my decision to revoke it. Classic opening strategy, Jake observed, checking it off his list. She's now stranded in Miami with no exit strategy and no way home unless she figures out alternative funding. But that was just the opening move in what would become a comprehensive campaign. Supporting Melissa's lifestyle for 18 months meant I had become deeply integrated into every aspect of her financial existence. Her phone was on my family plan as an additional line. Her car insurance was handled through my policy, with her listed as an additional driver. I'd added her as an authorized user on 2 of my credit cards specifically for emergencies and convenience when she was running errands or handling household purchases. I methodically went through every single connection point, phone service, called Verizon, and removed her line entirely, effective immediately. Car insurance, called my agent and had her removed from my policy, also effective immediately. Credit cards, contacted each company and canceled her authorized user status, which would make her existing cards stop working within hours. But I was just getting started with the financial demolition. Every streaming service account, every subscription box delivery, every meal kit service, every monthly payment that kept her lifestyle running smoothly. I systematically went through my bank statements and credit card records, identifying every recurring charge that benefited her and eliminated them one by one. Netflix, Hulu, Spotify Premium, Amazon Prime, HelloFresh meal deliveries, that expensive skincare subscription box, the monthly makeup subscription, even the premium yoga studio membership she'd convinced me to pay for because it was essential for her mental health. All canceled. Jake watched me work with obvious appreciation and professional admiration. You're like a financial surgeon right now, precise, thorough, and devastatingly effective. The masterstroke came when I remembered something crucial about Melissa's employment situation. She had been planning to quit her current part-time position at a local boutique next month because she deserved better opportunities and wanted to focus on personal growth and finding her true calling. She'd been using the security of my financial support as justification for being extremely selective about employment opportunities, turning down jobs that weren't aligned with her values or didn't pay enough to meet her standards. I logged into my banking app and established automatic transfers to move my money into a new savings account she couldn't access. Then I changed every password on every financial account and enabled two-factor authentication that would send codes to my phone number only. By noon Saturday, I had effectively eliminated every financial safety net she possessed. Her phone would stop working within hours when the service was discontinued. Her credit cards would be declined when she tried to use them. Her car insurance would be canceled, making it illegal for her to drive. Every convenience and luxury I'd been providing would simply disappear. Jake ordered pizza for lunch, and we sat reviewing our work like generals planning a military campaign. Phase 1 complete, he announced with satisfaction. Now we wait for reality to hit her. But I was already planning Phase 2. Sunday evening, my landline started ringing insistently. Yes, I still maintain a landline. It came with the house and proves useful for exactly these situations when you want to control who can reach you and when. The caller ID showed a Miami area code I didn't recognize. Melissa was calling from the hotel front desk because her phone had been disconnected. I let it go to the answering machine and listened to the most panicked message I'd ever heard from her. The message was 9 minutes of pure desperation and escalating panic. Her voice was shaking badly. She'd clearly been crying for a while, and she was frantically explaining how her phone had stopped working. Her credit cards were being declined everywhere she tried to use them, and none of her friends were willing to help fund her return flight to Phoenix. Brittany had apparently told her to figure it out independently like an adult when asked for financial assistance. Chloe had suggested she should contact her new Miami connections for help with travel expenses. Madison had simply said she couldn't afford to help and suggested Melissa call her family for money. Turns out Mr. Champagne and VIP section wasn't interested in actually sponsoring anyone beyond buying overpriced drinks for one evening. He apparently wasn't even staying at their hotel. He lived locally and had simply been out at the club looking for tourists to entertain temporarily. When Melissa had tried to contact him for help, he'd made it clear he thought she was crazy for expecting anything beyond their one-night interaction. The desperation in her voice was almost pathetic as she begged me to call her back, promising she could explain everything, insisting that the Instagram posts didn't mean what they looked like, claiming she'd been tricked by her friends into posting things that weren't representative of her actual feelings or intentions. Jake came over Monday evening with Chinese takeout to observe the continuing drama unfold. "This is better than any television series I've watched," he commented, as my phone buzzed continuously with calls from various unknown numbers with Miami area codes. Melissa had apparently convinced multiple hotel staff members to let her use their phones when she discovered that payphones basically don't exist anymore. Each message was more desperate than the last, with her voice becoming increasingly frantic as she realized the scope of her situation. The hotel wanted payment for additional nights beyond her original reservation. She couldn't rent a car without a working credit card. She couldn't even order room service or eat at the hotel restaurant. The friends who'd encouraged her behavior were now treating her like a burden and making it clear they weren't willing to share their resources to help her. One message was particularly revealing. She was sobbing while explaining that she'd tried to extend her hotel stay, but was told her card was declined. She'd asked the girls to help her pay for one more night while she figured out a solution, but they'd refused, saying they weren't responsible for her financial problems and that she should have planned better. "Please, baby, I'm scared. I don't know anyone here, and I can't afford a last-minute flight home. I'll do absolutely anything to fix this. I was stupid, and I made terrible decisions. But I love you, and I just want to come home." Jake raised his takeout container in mock celebration. And here begins the bargaining phase of grief. This is exactly what we predicted would happen, but I was nowhere near finished with the consequences she was going to face. Tuesday morning at work, I had an inspiration that surprised even me with its perfect vindictiveness and long-term strategic thinking. Melissa had been attempting to establish herself as a lifestyle influencer for the past 8 months, constantly discussing how she was going to become the next big social media personality and turn her Instagram into a real business. She'd been contacting brands, applying for sponsorship opportunities, even submitted applications to become a brand ambassador for several companies that aligned with her aesthetic and target demographic. Her entire Instagram presence was carefully designed and curated to present her as successful, classy, relationship-oriented, and aspirational. She posted photos of our date nights at nice restaurants, pictures of herself in our house that made it look like she lived some luxury lifestyle, carefully styled outfit photos that suggested she had unlimited shopping budgets. Well, those Miami stories were still visible on her account because she couldn't access Instagram to delete them without her phone working. I began systematically screenshotting everything. Every story, every caption, every video of her calling random men her sponsor and advertising herself as single while I literally funded the entire trip. I documented the timeline, showing how she'd posted about being excited for girls' time before leaving, then immediately switched to single messaging the moment she arrived. Then I did something Jake later called absolutely brilliant and devastatingly thorough. I started forwarding those screenshots to every single brand she'd attempted to work with over the past several months. Fashion companies, cosmetics brands, fitness supplements, lifestyle products, jewelry companies, even local businesses she'd tagged hoping for partnerships. Anyone she'd tagged in posts, mentioned in captions, or reached out to via email or direct messages. I sent professional, courteous, carefully worded emails explaining that I thought they should be aware of the type of content this potential brand representative was posting, as it might not align with their brand values and target demographic. Dear marketing team, I noticed that Melissa Chen has been seeking partnership opportunities with your company over the past several months. I thought you might find it relevant to see the type of content she posts on her social media platforms, as it may not align with your brand values and the image you want associated with your products. Please find attached recent examples of her social media activity that demonstrate her approach to personal branding and relationship commitments. Jake was practically rolling on the floor laughing when I showed him my email templates and the growing list of companies I was contacting. You just obliterated her influencer aspirations from orbit. That's genuinely genius. She'll never be able to work with any of these brands after they see what kind of person she really is. Wednesday brought even more interesting developments that showed how thoroughly her life was unraveling. I received a call from my homeowners association management company. Apparently, Melissa had contacted them Tuesday evening, requesting emergency access to my house because she was temporarily locked out and needed to retrieve important personal items for a family emergency. When they explained that only I could authorize access since I'm the sole property owner and she's not listed on any ownership or rental documentation, she started screaming about tenant rights and threatening to call the police and a lawyer. The HOA representative was calling to verify that this person actually lived at my address and whether I wanted to grant access. That's when I learned something that made everything even more satisfying. When Melissa moved in 18 months ago, we never officially established any legal tenancy agreement. I'd been meaning to draw up a proper rental agreement that would protect both of us, but I kept postponing it because the paperwork seemed complicated and everything was going smoothly. She'd been living in my house for 18 months, with no legal rights to the property whatsoever. No lease agreement, no rental contract, no documentation establishing her as a tenant. Legally, she was just a guest who'd been staying for an extended period. Thank goodness for procrastination sometimes. Thursday afternoon, I received a call from Melissa's mother, Karen. This woman has always been a piece of work, constantly asking when Melissa and I were getting married, making comments about how I was such a generous provider and exactly the kind of stable man Melissa needed, basically treating me like a walking bank account with legs who existed solely to fund her daughter's lifestyle. Tyler, what's happening? Melissa called me crying hysterically, saying you abandoned her in Miami and she can't get home. She says her phone isn't working and her cards aren't working and she's stuck there with no money. I explained the situation calmly and thoroughly. I told her about the Instagram stories, the cheating, the new sponsor posts, the way Melissa had presented herself as single while I funded the entire trip. I forwarded her the screenshots so she could see exactly what her daughter had posted for the world to see. There was an extended silence on the phone while she presumably looked at the evidence. Well, she finally said with a sigh, I can't say this surprises me completely. She pulled similar behavior with her previous boyfriend before you. I was really hoping she'd matured beyond this pattern. Previous boyfriend? This was definitely news to me. Turns out Melissa has an established history of this exact behavior pattern. She identifies men with stable incomes and good financial prospects, moves in with them gradually, slowly stops contributing financially while increasing her own spending, then starts searching for an upgrade while the current partner supports her lifestyle during the transition. Her ex before me was some accountant named David who covered her expenses for nearly 2 years while she found herself and explored her options. She eventually pulled a similar stunt at a destination wedding in Las Vegas, where she was caught making out with some groomsmen while David was paying for their hotel room and flights. I love my daughter, Karen continued, but she needs to learn that choices have consequences. I'm not bailing her out this time. Maybe experiencing real consequences will finally teach her that she can't treat people like this. Meanwhile, Jake had been conducting his own investigation into the professional ramifications of my email campaign. Remember those brand partnership emails I'd sent? Turns out several companies had taken them very seriously. One of the companies forwarded my message to their legal department because Melissa had actually signed a preliminary brand ambassador contract, with them pending final background approval and reference checks. They immediately terminated the agreement and sent her a cease and desist letter for misrepresenting herself during the application process. Apparently lying about your relationship status while applying to represent a family-oriented cosmetics brand that specifically markets to committed couples is considered fraudulent misrepresentation. The legal department was concerned about potential liability if they associated their brand with someone who publicly documented cheating behavior. 2 other companies responded to my emails, thanking me for the information and confirming they would not be moving forward with any partnership opportunities. One mentioned that they do background checks on all potential brand representatives and that my information would be added to their files. Friday afternoon, my HOA security office called with an update. Melissa had appeared at the front gate around noon with someone claiming to be a locksmith, attempting to gain entry to my house. When security asked for documentation proving she lived there, she couldn't provide any lease agreement, utility bills, or official mail with her name and my address. Security had called the locksmith company to verify the work order, and the locksmith confirmed that Melissa had hired them, but admitted she couldn't provide proof of residence when they asked. The locksmith refused to proceed without proper documentation and left. Security then escorted Melissa away from the property when she started yelling and demanding they call me to authorize access. They asked if I wanted to press trespassing charges, but I declined. The situation was already providing enough entertainment without involving law enforcement. That evening, I finally decided to answer one of her calls. Tyler, oh my God, thank you for picking up. Please, I've been trying to reach you for days. I'm completely stuck here with no money and nowhere to stay. Her voice was completely different now. Gone was any trace of the entitled attitude I'd grown accustomed to over the past year. No more demands or expectations. Just pure, desperate panic. I made a terrible mistake. The biggest mistake of my life. Those girls aren't real friends. They abandoned me the moment things got complicated. I've learned my lesson completely. Please just help me get home, and I'll make everything right between us. How exactly would you make things right, Melissa? I'll get a real job immediately. I'll pay you back every single penny I owe you. I'll delete those friends from my life permanently. I'll never post anything on social media again without checking with you first. Whatever you want, I'll do it. I let her talk for approximately 15 minutes, listening to her make increasingly desperate promises and increasingly elaborate plans for how she'd change her entire life and personality. It was honestly fascinating to hear someone completely abandon all pride and dignity in favor of pure survival mode. Finally, I said the words that made everything worthwhile. Melissa, you called another man your sponsor on Instagram while spending my money. You advertised yourself as single while living in my house rent-free. We're finished. Figure it out yourself. And I hung up. Last week, everything came together in the most beautiful and satisfying way possible. Melissa finally managed to return to Phoenix after being stranded in Miami. Turns out she had to call her ex-boyfriend David, sobbing and begging him to buy her a plane ticket home. According to what I heard, she promised she'd learned her lesson about treating people badly and just needed help to fix her life. David bought her the cheapest possible flight, but made it clear this was a one-time favor, and he never wanted to hear from her again. She arrived at Sky Harbor Airport Saturday morning with just the clothes on her back and immediately took an Uber to my house. But she couldn't get past the HOA gate since security had specific instructions about her previous unauthorized access attempts. She called me about 60 times over the weekend, then started posting on Instagram again when phone calls didn't work. Here's the beautiful part. Those Miami stories where she'd called another man her sponsor while I funded her trip had been screenshotted and shared throughout our entire social circle. Her reputation was completely destroyed. Mutual friends, co-workers, even casual acquaintances were reposting the screenshots with captions like, "When you realize someone you thought you knew is actually terrible." The post went viral within our local community, and everyone was talking about what she'd done. Brand partnership rejections started pouring in, not just from companies I'd contacted directly, but from others who'd seen the screenshots or been warned by companies in their network. Her dream of becoming a paid influencer was dead, and word was spreading through marketing networks that she was unreliable and untrustworthy. But the real karma happened Tuesday, when Jake called me, laughing so hard he could barely speak. You need to check Melissa's Instagram story immediately. This is the most delusional thing I've ever seen. She'd posted an extensive series of stories about how toxic people were trying to destroy her life and how she was the real victim. She claimed I was financially abusive and had trapped her in a dependent situation before abandoning her when she tried to have innocent fun. Then she posted something that proved she still didn't understand reality: a GoFundMe link requesting $4,500 to help me rebuild my life after financial abuse and public harassment. The description was incredible. She claimed I had isolated her from career opportunities and forced her into financial dependence before cruelly cutting off support when she went on a harmless girls' trip. She described the Miami incident as innocent socializing misinterpreted by jealous people, financial abuse, for discontinuing voluntary support while she actively cheated and publicly shopped for my replacement. The GoFundMe raised exactly $12 before being reported and removed for fraudulent claims. Wednesday morning, desperate texts started arriving from unknown numbers. Tyler, please. I'm about to be homeless. My friends won't help me and my mom cut me off. I have nowhere to go. Then, I see how terrible those posts looked. I was confused and trying to impress those girls. You mean everything to me. Finally, I'll sign a legal contract to pay you back every penny if you just help me get back on my feet. Thursday, she appeared at my workplace. Security called because she was in the lobby requesting to see me, and they said she looked like she'd been sleeping in her car. I went down to witness how far she'd fallen. The transformation was shocking. Designer clothes replaced with wrinkled jeans and a days-old t-shirt. No professional makeup or extensions. Unwashed hair and a messy ponytail. She looked exhausted, defeated, and completely broken down. She looked like what she actually was without my money propping up her lifestyle. Tyler, please. Just 5 minutes. I gave her 3 minutes. I messed up completely. You were the best thing that ever happened to me, and I threw it away for some jerk in Miami who wouldn't even buy me breakfast the next morning. She was ugly crying now, mascara streaking down her cheeks. I've applied everywhere. No one will hire me because those screenshots come up when they search my name. I'm living in my car. Please help me start over and I'll spend my life making it up to you. I looked at this woman who had treated me like a human ATM, publicly humiliated me while I funded her lifestyle, and actively planned to replace me while using my money as her safety net. Melissa, I said calmly, you called another man your sponsor while I paid for your trip. You posted yourself as single while living in my house rent-free. People make mistakes. Don't you believe in second chances? I believe in consequences, I replied. You wanted to be sponsored by someone else. Congratulations. You're free to pursue that without my money interfering. As I walked to the elevator, she sobbed desperately. What am I supposed to do? I looked back one final time. The same way you expected to survive before you met me. Figure it out like an adult. 4 years of what I thought was genuine relationship. 18 months of supporting her while she planned my replacement, and it came down to this moment of absolute clarity. Last I heard, she's working fast food in some suburb, living with 3 roommates, and all her influencer friends blocked her when she couldn't maintain their lifestyle and started asking for money.